Welcome to our talk. I am Lori Barkus. I'm a family law attorney. My company is Sustainable Family Solutions, and we have offices in Florida and Colorado. We focus on helping women have a successful divorce. And with me is my amazing friend and knowledgeable financial guru, Robin Deppies, who I spend a lot of time talking to on Facebook Lives, but today we're doing a recording because we've got something important to share. And Robin, do you want to tell everybody a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Yep, I am a financial advisor. I've been one for 10 years. Before that, I managed manufacturing companies and retail stores. So that's, decades ago, but it all adds up, right? It's all financial. And I am concentrating on working with women and make sure women really understand, and men need to know this too, but women really understand how they can protect themselves and how they can have a financially healthy relationship with their partner. And all of that comes down with the financial end, right? I mean, yes, we have the health, but what we want to talk about today with Lori, and Lori is an absolutely wonder. We love doing these one-on-ones and just talking. And so today we're going to be talking about prenups, and I don't know much about them. So Lori is going to educate us all on the do's and don'ts and whys of prenups. Right, Lori?
I am, and I'm really excited about this because especially it's timely because right now it is summer and a lot of times people are thinking about weddings and engagements. And for us, this is the time of year we get a lot of calls about prenuptial agreements. And because the same issues come up so much, we want to take the time to address that and help people have a better understanding, because this is the common scenario that we hear. People think that they have something very simple. Either their estate is simple, what they want to do is simple. It's just simply what's mine is mine, what's theirs is theirs. We just want to keep that separate. Maybe it's a house, maybe it's bank accounts, whatever it is. It sounds so simple. It feels so simple. Surely this is just a very easy agreement that somebody can do very easily, or the agreement was drafted and I just need you to read it and tell me it's okay. We hear that a lot. And here's why you need to do a little bit more with this. This document is something that could govern the rest of your life. I mean, again, you're getting married. We want the best for you. We hope that you're married forever. We hope that this is 30, 40, 60 years, whatever it may be. And what you put in here can really control that. And it's may not be as simple as you think because times are going to change and grow. Maybe you're going to have kids. That's going to change the picture. Maybe you will stop working. Maybe you don't think you'll stop working, but you end up stopping work because of kids. Maybe there's special needs, something like that. Maybe you're later on in life, you've been through this, so you're thinking, we don't have all that. But boy, it's really simple. It's just this one thing. It can get much more complicated than that because you need to be very careful and spell out exactly what it is that you are doing. It's not just simply, I'm keeping my house, I'm keeping my account, because you need to be very careful to identify what's marital, what isn't marital, and also make sure that this is an agreement that you can live with. And that's why one of the biggest components to this and why it's so great that we have Robin here is financial disclosure. Because what Robin does, Robin helps people prepare for divorce. And in prenups, what we're preparing for is that if divorce happens, it's not a terrible thing. I mean, it is bad, but it's not the terrible divorce that we hear about where people are just fighting forever. And the way to do that in a prenup is to be financially prepared. And Robin, I know you do a lot to help people financially prepare. Can you talk a little bit about that process and what that looks like?
Yeah, so I help people prepare not only for divorce, but for life and living, right? The contingencies of life. What happens if somebody becomes paralyzed? What happens if somebody's in a coma? What happens if somebody dies? What happens if somebody disappears or leaves? What happens if, right, you're going to divorce? And the very, very, very first thing that I tell people is find the documents, find the statements, find the accounts. Where are they? Write them down. If they're bank accounts, what banks, what savings accounts, what 401ks, what IRAs, what investments, what properties. And all of this is how to prepare. And it is prepare for life, prepare for the prenup, prepare to get married, and share this with your partner, right? Because you need to talk, you should talk about this and have a financial discussion once a month. Bring that out. Take a look at it. What has changed? Oh, I closed this account. We moved this. We moved all. This is where our financial advisor put it all together. Even in a prenup, what vehicles do you own, right? I don't know if we need VIN numbers. Do we, Lori?
We may not need to go to that level, but what you really want to do is make sure that everything's on the table. You know what the assets are, you know approximately what they're worth. With accounts, we want to be a little more specific than we do with vehicles. But Robin makes an excellent point, just like she always does, because it's really important to know this stuff. If you're the person, sometimes you have one person who has a lot of assets and then the other person has less. You want to make that full disclosure for a few reasons. First of all, your agreement is not legally valid if you don't. And so those of you out there that are thinking you're going to get that $500 prenup and you're talking to a lawyer that is willing to do a prenup for $500, that person's committing malpractice. And if they don't care about committing malpractice, they don't care about protecting you. And yeah, I did just say that. You really want to be careful with it. You want to have the full disclosure. And you know what, if you're the other person who's like, okay, well, that person has more assets, I really don't. I don't care. It's theirs. It belongs to them. Don't want to know. You do. You need to know, because you need to understand what you all are getting into, not just because of this document, because of what Robin said. We want you to have a successful marriage. We really do. And a successful marriage means understanding all of that and knowing what is there. So you either know what you're waiving, or you have a very frank discussion about, well, maybe I want this agreement to look differently, especially thinking, what happens when we're married 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? And something else to think about. You might have a wonderful marriage, and we hope that you do. And your spouse might say, don't worry about it, I'm always going to take care of you. And they mean it. But life happens, not just divorce, right? I mean, Robin knows, but illness. I've seen this. Somebody gets early onset Alzheimer's. Somebody is disabled, unable to take care of themselves. There's a head injury, all of these catastrophic things. Now, all of a sudden, you're not negotiating with your spouse that you love, who made you all these promises. There might be a guardianship. And there's somebody who's saying, well, all I have is this prenup and you waived everything. And this is what I need to do. And this is what it's going to be. So again, not to scare people, but there are very serious consequences to these agreements. They are not simple. And if they're not done right, your simple agreement is going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars litigating it. And Robin, I know you've seen that too. That's why you do the work you do.
Yes, because I've worked with women that they were married. One woman, she was married a year, and her partner passed away in a car accident. She had no clue, right? But where to find this stuff, what to do. What about the ones that have been married for 20 years and they never had the discussion about, well, I own an oil well, and they talked about selling it, but they never, to this day, she doesn't know if he ever sold it. We can't find the paper and the documents for it, right? So you have to have these discussions. Don't let them sign the tax return for you. You have to, and legally, you're supposed to sign the tax return. Get a copy, know where it is, know where all of this is. So I have questions about a prenup, though. So, Lori, why should we get one in the first place, right? Why do people want prenups? And what is the preconceived notion out there is like, this is easy. I own this house, this account, and this car. They own this, this, and this, and we're getting married. And let's say we're in our 20s or 30s. Mm-hmm. Then I want a prenup, right? What is the preconceived ideas and what is wrong with that idea?
Absolutely. Fantastic question, especially for those of you kind of starting out in life at that earlier stage. It seems very simple. I just have this house. I just have this account. I want this should just stay mine. So I want an agreement that says that this completely stays mine. That sounds really simple. Once you get married, in most states, again, I'm only licensed in Florida and Colorado, but in most states, everything earned during a marriage becomes marital. So that house that you have, if you put money into it from your paycheck that you earned, that you're thinking, well, that's mine, you put marital money in. So, and did you mean to do that? Did your spouse mean to contribute? What is the understanding? Same thing with your bank accounts. And what happens if the house appreciates? What happens if you guys put money into it to improve it? Things like that. What happens if you add money to an account, add money to an investment? It gets a lot more complicated. And the problem is you want to make sure that you spell out what you meant. I mean, did you mean that no matter what, this is mine, doesn't matter if it quadruples in value, doesn't matter what we put in? Or did you mean, hey, the base value is mine? And when I have these conversations with people, a lot of this comes out. And that's a big part of it. And then the other part is the concept of, children and family, and what is that going to look like? And what if somebody stops working? What if somebody can't work? What if somebody is needed to take care of the children? Children are not part of a prenuptial agreement, but if you waive maintenance, if you waive investments, other things, what is that going to look like? What do you want to do about that if things change?
So I'm hearing that if somebody comes in for a prenup and one of the partner's spouses says, I don't care about that account or whatever, I'm going to waive my right to it, or that house, right? The house that they're going to be living in. And it's written in that prenup that they waive whatever the legal wording of that is. And let's say they're married 40 years and they still have that account and that house, and something happens. So all of that appreciation, all of the additional money that was put in there, the spouse that waived the right is like, they have no right to it. Is that sort of what?
If the prenup is drafted right, because that's the other problem. Again, if it's not very clear about appreciation and different types of appreciation, the person who thinks they have a separate asset may not. But assuming they have a well-drafted agreement and they've taken the right steps, then yes. And you're right. The biggest problem is when people are married a long period of time, then those discussions happen of, I will always take care of you. Don't worry about that agreement. It's meaningless. This is us together. But then something happens in life, and all you have is that agreement, because that agreement wasn't changed. It wasn't modified. Nobody looked at it. You didn't do the financial planning that Robin talked about, where you realize that account that didn't matter to you then, that's what you're counting on to retire. And now if you don't have part of that, what does your retirement look like?
Yeah.
So again, there's a lot to think about. It's not just, I want to keep this house, this car, this bank account. A lot more at stake.
Wow. And does this prenups go across state lines? Because people move,
Yeah.
right? So is it legal in every state?
If it's drafted well,
If
it
if
should.
it's okay.
I've seen a lot of, I mean, I've seen litigation where people spent an awful lot of money because they did not do it right the first time. The agreement generally will say that it remains valid. It's valid according to the laws of where you lived, which is also a reason to maybe think about updating it. Because I've had litigation where people live in one state and now you have to deal with the laws of another state to argue it, whether it's valid or invalid. So, again, things to think about. Yes, it would be, but maybe it is a document that you update. And I know these are uncomfortable conversations. I have these conversations with people all the time, and it feels like, well, we're getting married, we love and trust each other. Why are we doing this? And the point I would make about it is finances are one of the biggest things that tear people apart. They really are. It's one of the biggest causes of divorce. Start having mature adult discussions around money, even if they're uncomfortable, even if it's difficult. Know that you're getting into a financial partnership and have those discussions.
So if you have a prenup, um, I mean, and everyone should have a will, right? And then you have your discussions, and I'm going to say this again, at least, once a quarter, minimum once a year, right? Go over your documents, talk about them. Do they need updated? So prenups kind of need to be updated just like your will does, right? As you grow your wealth, as you grow your family, as you move around. So that's kind of like two things really that should be looked at once. Power of health, power of financial, right? To protect each other. That's interesting. Can so now let me. If you have a prenup and you're saying, "Oh, you know what? I don't think we need this anymore," and you kind of rip it up or burn it, it's kind of gone, isn't it? I mean, if you can't find the prenup, it's how does that work? I know. Look at your face.
Well, I would make sure I would actually have everybody, both sides sign a document saying it's no longer valid. Freely and voluntarily, we're waiving it because one person rips it and the other one doesn't. And attorneys, again, you hired the right person. They're supposed to keep a copy of it. No statute of limitations on that. So if somebody wanted to, they should be able to track down one of the attorneys and say, hey, where's a copy? So, and again, if you're invalidating it, you definitely should put that in writing and have a document that says that. And
okay.
a lot of these things aren't super complicated. Amending the document doesn't mean that you have to go back to the beginning or invalidating it. So this isn't something that has to be an ongoing complex process. But to Robin's point, just as you would update your will, you would want to think about updating this document, because you're more likely, if you've been married a long time and you divorce and you're trying to enforce a prenuptial agreement and you haven't looked at it in 20 or 30 years, you're more likely going to have a problem. It's going to be outdated and somebody's going to try to challenge it. And you've just undone everything that you've done, because you're going to spend, the whole point of a prenup is so that you don't have to go to court. You don't have a messy divorce. You don't spend tens of thousands of dollars fighting over property and furniture or whatever it is. You figure all that out. So make sure that you're up to date on what that should be.
And so the time to prepare for a prenup, like you said, and honestly, I didn't know that could be this complicated. I thought it was a simple thing because I wasn't thinking, like you just said, that times change, your lives change, your jobs and careers and your health and kids and whatever that is, they all change. So that will affect the prenup. It affects your will. It affects your finances. It affects where your accounts are. So how when I talk with people and about planning for their divorce and the financial end, and it's always the financial end. To me, that seems to take more time, right? So do you have a list of things that people should get together and the timeline? Are we talking to prepare, maybe they should prepare in like 6 weeks or 8 weeks?
I would say 6 months before a wedding. Because I mean, I get a lot of people who are like, well, I'm getting married at the end of the month. That's not a lot of time. That's not a lot of time to get this done. And again, you don't want to sign something on the eve of a wedding and then have somebody say, well, I felt pressured to sign. I felt duress. I felt coerced. Again, nobody should feel that way. Ideally, I would say 6 months before, start this process. And as far as gathering documents, we have lists that we give our clients to say, here's everything we want. Here's a sheet, here's values, here's what we want you to attach. And again, because that's a bit of a time consuming process. You want to make sure you produce your tax returns showing income. You want copies of all bank statements, any debts, anything that's valuable. I mean, you don't have to inventory your whole house, but if you have collectibles, you do want those in there. Again, you want to be comprehensive. This is not the time to say, I want a 1-page document. I don't want to spend more than $500, or we can both use the same lawyer. No, you cannot. You can't do any of those things and have a valid agreement. So, save your $500 and put it towards your very expensive legal fees down the road, because it's not going to help you. And I don't mean to be flip, but I hear this so much. And I'm always frustrated by it, because if there are people out there that are doing these for that kind of, for that amount of money and cutting corners, and I've seen it because I've litigated these cases, then they're doing a massive disservice. And don't fall for that. Just don't. It's not going to protect you.
Okay. So 6 months to prepare, because you're right. I mean, we all live busy lives, and to gather the financial, which is the basis of a prenup, right?
Absolutely.
Everyone that you talk to is like, well, I'm just going to get a prenup because I own this. This is mine. This is my money. This is my property, whatever that is, right?
Right.
So that's why they get a prenup. 6 months to plan for the prenup, at least a year to plan for the wedding. Right.
Right. You're planning it. I know it's weird. People feel like, well, I'm planning a wedding and planning a divorce at the same time, and I don't like this. I want to focus on the wedding. But again, you want to plan for your life. Like Robin said, plan for your life.
Right. And a prenup, I'm going to say, is not necessarily because of a divorce, but doesn't it also protect people if someone gets dementia or a head injury? Would that come into play then also?
It might, because you'd end up in a guardianship proceeding, and if there were a divorce, that agreement might come into play. But all the more reason to make sure it says what you both can live with.
Right.
Really, really important.
And that's why you should get it updated. Now, to update a prenup, would you suggest going back to the same attorney because they already have that in a file? And I presume it's electronic.
It should be, yeah.
It should be electronic, easier to update, so they don't have to draft a brand new a prenup. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Can just do an addendum or a modification. And absolutely, that would definitely be easier. But Robin, I know there's more to this topic. Maybe we'll touch on this one again, but let's wrap up for today. So in summary, folks, take it seriously. This is not a 1-page document. This is not an easy, simple, let me see how I can price shop it. This is your life. This is your future. Take it seriously and work with somebody like Robin to gather that information and understand it. Very important. You're really planning your life here, not planning your divorce. You're planning your life. And we want you to be successful.
Yeah, Lori, I totally agree. And it's all part of planning and plan for the what ifs in your life, the contingencies, plan for the worst, hope for the best, all the time. And yes, I can help with, get the financials and stuff together. And Lori definitely can help, and her team can help with writing up the prenups and almost anything else that you need, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. And you can reach us at sustainablefamilysolutions.com. Robin, what's your website?
Heartfeltfinancialsolutions.com.
Fantastic. And we would love to hear from you. We would love to hear your thoughts and comments. And Robin, as always, it's such a pleasure to be here with you, talking to you about these things.
Thank you, Lori. This has been absolutely wonderful. Again, I always enjoy our talks.
So do I. Thank you.
Thank you.